Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Title Update 3. Today we're taking a look at some interesting, funny, or hopefully useful things you might not have known about in this update. So here's a pile of those things with a good focus on cool, useful details with Omega specifically. Let's begin. Let's start with the Soul of Pictomancer. As you can see, you can cast it even here in the hub. But did you realize that your Palico is going to try to, well, attempt to copy you? And it has a unique animation for all three spells. So for the pom motif, the sort of ball drop, it kind of copies you pretty well at first. In fact, arguably you'd say it does the best job with this one overall. It actually casts the spell just on itself. For the wing motif, it also is a bit more successful with the actual spell casting compared to the final one, but also casts it on itself, going straight into the wind and being flung up into the air. By far and away the least successful version is Mog of the Aegis, where the beam doesn't come out for the Palico at all. The poor Palico doesn't summon the Moogle and fire a blast. The Moogle just kind of shows up, looks at the Palico, gives it a double high five, and then it starts getting abducted, being pulled up into the air before being dropped and left behind. How sad. Pretty cute detail. But also, yeah, if you're standing there in the hub or whatever, you can just stand there with the soul in your hand and take a look at the little wand and the little, what is that, a book? A tablet? If you want to take a look at the interesting details of this unique weapon. Speaking of doing things in unison with your Palico though, this is a bit more successful. There are two new Final Fantasy XIV themed gestures. And of course we have the Mandeville dance. This ridiculous character, if you've never seen him before, go look him up, trust me. It's an insane side character. But yeah, this is his dance with the important flex finish that the Palico actually successfully mirrors with you. I love this synchronized stuff. And thankfully it's not the only one. The Sabatender, this one also has the Palico copying you. And if you activate it, you'll just stand there in this ridiculous pose like the Cactuar. But then if you try to move, you end it with a little spin. And like a creaking door or a falling tree, you collapse alongside your Palico. Again, the synchronized nature of this is fantastic. And you'll just lie there for ages, as well as your Palico if you want. Moving on, let's talk about the fact that from the barrel balling, you now have a new reward, a pretty important one, the nourishing extract, which we obviously want to be able to craft our mega demon and mega armor skin potions that you absolutely want to be running if you're dealing with Savage Omega, and honestly for the future of the game. It's a very nice addition, and I found that you can get multiple nourishing extract even when you really mess the barrel balling up and just get a C. So it's worth going over and just dudding your barrel bomb ticket a couple times just to get the valuable resources. Because don't forget, it's also going to give you the meal tickets, which we definitely want. Next up, we have new equipment that has a bunch of cool effects and features to it. If you want to wear, the arm or glove specifically of armor will decide what your slinger looks like. And for a few special examples, there's actually a complete new visual setup for them. So if you remember the Zoshir's sort of white-yellow crown that goes around your wrist looks awesome. It also changes the slinger's visuals where you're firing this kind of white line out that glows. It looks awesome. The original version of this sort of color change concept was from the Sakura event and that armor set. So the gloves in that case, they're like this awesome cloth wrap. It goes with a load of different sets, and then it turns your slinger, as it were, into a fireish pinkish purple flame. And then obviously that comes out when you fire the slinger too. This is a rare concept, but is there for both of the new gloves for the Bale and Omega set. Taking a look at the Bale set, you can see that you have this dark red ominous fire. Definitely got an evil theme to it, looks amazing. And when you use the slinger, it is that deep red look, which just looks awesome. But it also gains new visuals and sound effects. Have a look. But the same thing happens again for the Omega. With Omega, you get this ridiculous dish on the side. It reminds me of the platform you actually stand in during, the Omega raid. When you're firing the slinger, the wire, the grapple is this nice blue. And it also has its own sound effects and special visuals. Yeah, they went really far for this. I think these are awesome. Some of my favorite stuff for the cosmetics is changing these color options. But it goes further than that. There's also the waist piece. This also changes your knife, the one that your character literally has, throws, sharpens, and engages with in a variety of passive ways, as well as for different gestures. Having a look at these, we can see that the Bale set is literally a mini Shadowbringer, the new greatsword that came with killing the normal version of Omega. It honestly looks a bit ridiculous. That's a chunky knife, but obviously fits really well with the theme of the set. For the Omega set, by comparison, you have a literal SNS blade, because the SNS is the true Omega sword. This is what it looks like. And then if we look back to the little Omega knife that you get with a waist piece, yeah, it is a little baby version of the sword and shield version of the Omega. It's sized a bit normally though. The SNS version of the sword is ridiculously long, clipping through the shield in a pretty unfortunate way. But there is a cool detail that prevents you from ever seeing that. So let's do a quick section on the new gear, starting with that SNS, the true Omega sword. As you can see, it has a unique unsheath and sheath animation, where the crystal gear just kind of appears and disappears from your sight. Now, obviously it would clip through the shield if it was on your back, and you could see that, as we saw when we were looking at it earlier, but thankfully, with it disappearing, you don't have to look at that. One of the more annoying aspects of a few of the SNS shields is the way that the blade goes straight through when it's on your back. There's also a subtle but kind of horrifying detail with this shield specifically, how it comes out of your wrist, your arm, like it's actually attached to you and your skin. It's like it's being forced out, pooling out from your arm, forming into that shield, yet remaining directly linked to you. Much like, Omega must, in theory, when generating other life forms, kind of spew out some kind of matter from itself that takes a new shape. This one just stays attached, and it's the only equipment with this detail that I can see that has that effect. But then with the SNS itself as a weapon, it does have the unique weapon skill Synthetic Shield. You of course get a defense boost for yourself and those around you when you land a perfect guard with it. This does have a unique visual and sound, as the equipment glows and bursts in yellow. There's also a bright yellow circle technology that spreads around from your location when you do it, that probably represents the distance that it can buff the allies with that defense. So pretty cool stuff. On top of that, we have the new insect glaive, True Omega's Rod. It also has its own unique unsheath and sheath animation where the glaive kind of appears or disappears. But the star of the show here is the Kinsect, how you get a literal Omega Micros on your arm. It's really cool. This, in combination then with the super move, the Rising Spiral Slash, has a unique version of the attack with new VFX. Surrounding you with Omega themed tablets as you rise up, generating these markings below you, like the Omega effect bursts from you, a purple technology circle spreads around you, and there's black rings laying around you in a circle too, as the tablets move and spiral at the same time. So that's a very satisfying pattern update for that attack from quite a few angles. I also want to quickly mention the new resonance effect. This is the 2 and 4 set bonus of the Omega set. What this means is you get an affinity bonus or raw bonus for its duration. It's 90 seconds of one, then it swaps to the other for 90 seconds and so on. The 2 set bonus is 20% affinity or 40% for the 4 set bonus, where the 2 set bonus for raw is just 10 raw, but the 4 set bonus is 30 raw. There's 2 versions though, the affinity boost when an ally is close to you, where the raw only works when an ally is far away enough from you. You can see these special orbs that appear and spin around you, warning you of the change of mode, also displayed on the side. You can see a ring of colour though. The affinity boost is a blue ring with a pretty tight circle, so a player's got to be within that. And you can also see these kind of passive white lines moving up above you like wind. While the red ring, by comparisons for the raw boost, it has a much greater size to it because it wants no players to touch that and be within that. In this case, the lines moving like wind are now black, so another stark difference. Be aware that this only works with other hunters, so palicos will not work and trigger this effect, but it does work with support hunters, and you might be using those with Omega. One subtle detail that I saw highlighted on Reddit that I want to mention today is a small change to the weekly bounties. You are now getting 3 silver talisman tickets per week if you complete the weekly, which is tied to that, which is just 9-star monsters or higher. Obviously, if you're doing Savage Omega, you'll be working at this, but there's lots of 9-star monsters to consider at this point. A good consideration for this then will be the event quest, the 9-star version of the White Wonder, Tempered Blangonga. Definitely worth doing while it's here, because we're going to see other 9-star tier 2 monsters coming soon, like the Anjanath and a Jarakan as well. Great targets for getting that weekly done. If you don't remember, or maybe you didn't play in the August update, title 2.5, you need to come to Suja and speak with the melding pot vendor to actually use those. You want to bring yourself to Talisman Mending and go use items that will use these new tickets. This then gives you in exchange 10 rolls of the new RNG talisman system. So if you're still trying to get like an ideal talisman, especially with our build guides coming out, this is a great way to farm it, or at least give yourself that boost. Now just a few things that are important to know for Omega. starting with a unique health scaling stuff. Initially, it didn't seem like Omega scaled based on multiplayer, because how you would test for this without data mining or modding is basically dropping a boulder on the target and then seeing how much damage it does. Because that wasn't changing in 2-player versus 4-player, it didn't look like Omega scaled its health. However, as it turns out, it does, but there is basically a multiplayer version and a solo version. If it's just one player, one hunter in the hunt, the normal version of Omega has just over 90,000 hit points. But the moment that there is a second player, or third or fourth, including support hunters by the way, the health shoots up to 140,000 hit points. That's 50,000 more. So it has a lot less health if you are actually solo. But at the same time, this means if you're going to bring anyone else to the hunt, maybe there's 2 of you, maybe there's 3 of you, there's no reason to let empty slots exist. Bring a support hunter or multiple, because you're making it a lot harder if you don't. For the Savage version, by the way, the 1-player version has 100,000 hit points, so only 10k more than the Omega normal solo version. But the multiplayer version, whether you're 2, 3 or 4 hunters, it's 180,000 hit points. That's 40k more than the normal version, and a big difference between solo and multiplayer, obviously 80,000 more. So, something to think about. Another thing that I think is an incredibly important tip to be thinking about is Mind's Eye, the offensive decoration. As it states, you can prevent your attacks from being deflected, which doesn't matter to us. What we care about is this percent attack power increase against hard targets. Now that data mining and such exists, we know the actual hit zones instead of just vague stars. Be aware then that slash weapons aren't actually hitting a weak spot if you're attacking the front legs, which means Mind's Eye will work there. Speaking of hit zones, the legs have a difference between them. The fore legs for slash have a 40 hit zone, but the hind legs for slash have a 60 hit zone. It's a massive difference, one you shouldn't be ignoring. So if you ever were able to choose, you'd be attacking the hind legs more than the front legs as a slashed weapon user. The thing is, Mind's Eye obviously influences this. Did you know that the hit zones literally change for the worse when he enters that enraged mode, the panto mode? For slash damage, it's super bad. There are no great hit zones suddenly. Like the hind legs, they drop from 60 to 35. This may explain why, that mode is as tough as it is and extended as it is. On the bright side though, you can use Mind's Eye. During that special tough mode, Mind's Eye is going to be working overtime on everything you're attacking. It lets you attack the front legs and benefit fully from that 30% increase at level 3, making those hit zones a great target. And they're a lot more reliable than the hind legs in multiplayer when it's turning around a lot. Another suggestion would be running other decorations that are going to have a big impact. So for my dual blades, I have a special Omega setup, and in this case, I'm bringing a fire weapon to swap to, as is commonly talked about. But you can see in my offensive decorations, I don't just have like razor sharp or sharpness management. I just go full crit or full damage as a focus, because by the time that I drop to like blue sharpness, Nerzilla's dead, or I guess I am. So there's no reason to worry about sharpness management for that second fire weapon for that brief phase. There's also the concept of running Divine Blessing to reduce the damage you take sometimes, fire resistance to deal with a mustard bonfire, especially in the final area, or something like this, Guard Up. Having Guard Up level 3 is hugely impactful on the shield, so let's talk about that. Shield users can tank the beam attacks if you have Guard Up 3. So rejoice lance users, but this works for any shield user. So for the big super beam, the obvious example is the Stalwart Guard, which works against any channel beam monster attack and is obviously very relevant in the Omega fight, where it's flying and doing that super beam that can be so deadly. Being able to tank it and press against it is really cool, and your lance users in general are able to sort of press forward and attack. Having Guard Up 3 though also lets you guard against the line beams, the 5 that cut in those different angles, which otherwise you can't guard against, so it's extremely helpful. So if you're going to use a shield, I'd strongly recommend Guard Up 3 at the minimum. 2 other cool and useful interactions to know about are these. Screamer pods. These can draw the micros to a specific spot. It's great for setting up shield locations since they're drawn to you when you do this. You fire it, you get all their attention, you quickly position them. It's listed as something that they do in the small monster hunter notes. Because they're sensitive to sound, a sonic bomb can be used to draw their attention. So they're kind of expecting you to be using this. There's also the item Cleanser, which is very impactful in this fight. When you're dealing with a savage version, you have the ice attacks, which freeze you. If you just pop a Cleanser, that can save you. There's also a trick you can do with the Sacred to sort of pick you up at the right moment, but this is just so much faster and more reliable. And it works against the clone webs too. Like Nerzilla webs you and you get stuck, quickly take a Cleanser and you can get out of it. There's no reason not to be running this incredibly impactful item in your set. Absolute last tip for this video. is the signal feature. Did you realize that if you use it, it draws support hunters over to you and you can absolutely spam it? This is relevantly used in Area 2, where there's that little section to the side where there's 2 boulders you can drop down. By spamming signal, you bring them over to you, and then obviously Omega's going to come over to you as well, cutting into the downside of the support hunters and how unreliable they are in terms of positioning. Obviously this trick will work in Area 3 and 4, where there are other boulders, if you really want to hone in on that. But I do find naturally during the fight, you get those opportunities anyway. But yeah, in Area 2, use signal, bring it to the boulders as early as possible. But there you have it. That is my things episode for Title Update 3 initially. If you guys have anything you'd like to add to the topics, or maybe say something that we didn't talk about today that would be useful or interesting to know for Title Update 3, then please let us know in the comments. But for now, that's the video. Thank you for watching. I've been Hollow, you've been you. I'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.